those. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to our meeting tonight of our City Council, and I will call the meeting to order, and we will have a roll call by our City Clerk.
The record will reflect that all members are present.
Thank you. Tonight, our Pledge of Allegiance and Invocation are by Howard Amen, Board Member of the Boys and Girls Club of Vista. Howard, for many years, a member of the Boys and Girls Club.
Please be with us tonight and support the members of the City Council making wise decisions. Bless all of the attendants tonight, including the children and adults. In thy name, amen.
Amen. And could you lead the pledge for us, maybe? The Pledge of Allegiance?
Ready? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. The next thing I'd like to announce a Brown Act notice of simultaneous meeting compensation. In accordance with the Brown Act, I'd like to announce that as a result of convening simultaneous meetings, the members of the Buena Sanitation District will receive compensation of $147.75 for the district meeting pursuant to Buena Sanitation District Ordinance 2006-1. The next thing, I'll have an approval of our agenda by our City Manager, Patrick Johnson.
Mayor, there are no changes to the agenda.
Okay, and there were, we didn't have any closed session today, so we don't have any report from our attorney. So the next thing on our agenda, we're going to do some presentations. And the first one, I'll just come down and do the first one is proclamation declaring Saturday, April 13th as Earth Day in the City of Vista. So I'll come down. Is Ron Holloway, is Ron here? Come on up. And also, yeah, and also Brian Morse. Is Brian here?
Short group.
Do this. Okay, I'm going to read this. Hold on just a second here. This is a proclamation I'm going to present to them. It says, whereas the first Earth Day was nationally proclaimed in 1970 to raise public awareness of the need to protect the environment and conserve resources, whereas National Earth Day is now celebrated on April 22nd of each year. The first Earth Day in the City of Vista was celebrated 10 years ago in order to foster environmental awareness in our community. All people, regardless of race, gender, income, or geography, have the right to a healthy, sustainable environment with economic growth. And it is understood that the citizens of the global community must step forward and take action to create a green economy to combat global challenges. Whereas a green economy can be achieved on the individual level through educational efforts, public policy, and consumer activism campaigns, and Alta Vista Gardens is hosting its annual Earth Day Festival on April 13th, 2013 from 10 a.m. until 3 p.m. with programs and events for people of all ages. Whereas the Healing the Earth, Healing Ourselves Earth Day celebration at the Alta Vista Gardens is an acknowledgement of our environment and its dependence on our careful stewardship. So therefore, the Vista City Council hereby encourages its residents, businesses, and institutions to celebrate the Earth on Earth Day and every day, reflecting on the importance of a sustainable environment and economy, and hereby proclaims Saturday, April 13th, 2013 as Earth Day in the City of Vista. And so maybe you guys would like to talk about what goes on that day. Would one of you like to talk about that? You do it, you do it. We'll do it together.
We've, for the past several years, we've had an Earth Day event up at the Alta Vista Gardens, and we have various things going on that day. We have plant sales, children's activities, barbecue. This year we'll have some music. A lot of vendors will be there. And Brian probably could expand on it a little bit more. Did I miss anything?
Okay, Brian, go on.
We're going to have 3 different musical performers, and we're also trying to put together a healing garden. So that's what the healing was about in the proclamation.
Are they raising money for that? For the fundraiser?
Yes, it's a fundraiser. Earth Day's a fundraiser, but mostly it's about having fun. And a lot of events, free events for children also.
And you also sell plants? Sell plants that day?
Yeah,
Don't you
we
have a plant sale?
sale.
Yeah, I remember.
There's a plant sale.
Because I've been there. It's very fun. So it's a fun day. It's a fun day for kids. If you have kids, take them up there. They have a lot of activities for the kids in the children's garden. So anyway, congratulations on that, and we'll look forward to that. So congratulations. Thanks. 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 Thank you for coming. If you haven't ever been to Alta Vista Gardens, you'll have to go up there. It's beautiful, and what they've done with it is amazing. So it's very fun. Okay, the next thing I'm going to do is give certificates of appointment to incoming commission members, committee members, and I have two. I have 2 unscheduled vacancies: Stephen Rhodes and Joseph Salazar. Are you both here? Is that Joseph is? There's Steve. Okay. So I'd just like to congratulate you. You've been appointed to serve on the, not you, Joseph. That's not you. He's been appointed, Joseph has been appointed to the Sales Tax Oversight Committee, effective February 26th for a term ending June 30th, 2014. So I'm going to present this to him and congratulate you. Thank you for serving for us, and we appreciate that. We look forward to serving with you. And this one's certificate of appointment is for Steve Rhodes, and he's been appointed to serve on the Parks and Recreation Commission effective February 26th and for a term ending June 30th, 2015 for the City of Vista. So we appreciate that, Steve. Thank you for doing that. We have one more here, and that is a letter of appreciation to the Girl Scouts of San Diego. Where are the Girl Scouts? Yay! Come on up. Yes, they need to come up. All the Girl Scouts. Come on, Girl Scouts. We need all of you guys up here. And we'll take a picture when you get done. But I want to read their little, we have a letter of appreciation for them here. So I'm going to. Are they brownies? No. What, daisies? Oh, they're daisies now? I didn't know that. I was a brownie when I was little, a brownie and a Girl Scout when I was little. So but we didn't have daisies. Of course, that was 100 years ago. Okay, here's your, you hold this. This is their letter of appreciation, and this is, they opened a new office on 5315 Avenida Encinas in Carlsbad that Girl Scouts did. So the mayor and members of the Vista City Council congratulate the Girl Scouts of San Diego on their achievements in continuing an over 100-year tradition of developing girls into the future generations of leaders by building girls of courage, confidence, and character who make the world a better place. And last year you celebrated your 100th year anniversary, so this year it'll be your 101 this year. Girl Scouting is America's, I told you it was 100 years ago that I was a Girl Scout. Girl Scouting is America's best leadership development organization for girls, inspiring and empowering more than 50 million girls over the last 100 years. Girl Scouts takes an active role in increasing girls' awareness of opportunities in the arts, science, technology, engineering, math, sports, travel, career exploration, and countless other areas that can expand their horizons. So thank you and congratulations on the opening of your new North Coastal office on Saturday, February 16th, 2013. Congratulations to all of you. We're very proud of you. So come out in front. Have your picture up front here so the desks aren't in the way. Let them all come out in front here. Yeah, and then have them all come out. Wait. Everybody out. cookies. How much are cookies? How much are they? Whatever you got. How much are cookies selling for these days? $4. $4? Oh, thank you. Is that $4? Take the money. No, take the money. We want to give you the money. Okay. Take the money for your troop. Thank you, and thank you all for coming. That was so nice. Love it. Okay.
Madam Mayor, may
Yeah.
I just say that in my family, my daughter was the 5th generation Girl Scout. My Girl Scouting family goes all the way back to my great-grandmother. And I'm very proud to say that I've been a Girl Scout all these years. My daughter went all the way through 13 years. I was at the grand opening event in Carlsbad last month. And I just want to say thank you to the Girl Scouts for what you do for our community, and thank you for being here tonight.
Okay, with that, I'm going to move on to the next thing on our agenda is a consent calendar. And on the consent calendar, all the items will be enacted in one motion unless an item is removed from the calendar. We have one speaker. So there's one item removed from the calendar by the public, which is C3, the cash report. Yeah, the check register? The treasurer's report. Oh, yeah, okay, didn't say that. Yeah, said something different. So that, and there's only the 3 items, so I would look for a motion for the balance unless somebody else has something they want to pull. If not. So I have a motion.
I'll make a motion.
Are you on?
I'll make a motion to approve the rest of the consent calendar.
I'll second.
Okay. Please cast your votes. Mine didn't go. Oh, you know, I pushed the wrong button. Okay, motion passes unanimously. Okay, so you want to hear the speaker on C3? Okay. Chuck Rabel on the treasurer's cast report.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council. Chuck Rabel here. Just a couple things real quick. If you look at the total cash investments by the city and managed by fiscal agents, we're talking about $216 million, of which the interest amounts to less than $500,000. Some of the returns are typical of today, but it's basically bubkas. If you go to page 8, you'll see that almost $50 million of those monies are in on-demand financing instruments. And then if you go back to the last page, page 12, back in the early 80s, the North County Square got going, okay? That was a long time ago, and I realized that these bonds were refinanced. But maybe it's time to say goodbye to these old bonds, and since we're not earning anything anyway, just a thought. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rabel. So I would look for a motion. Unless there's any comments. You have comments, anybody? Or
I make a motion to approve item C3.
Okay. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Okay. Please cast your votes. That motion passes unanimously. The next thing on our agenda is item D1. It's a discussion item on revenue-generating ideas. Our Assistant City Manager, Ali Zimmerman, will take that.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. I'm Ali Zimmerman, Assistant City Manager. I'm going to wait for the PowerPoint to come up. But I can get started, actually. This discussion item is a follow-up to the special city council meeting we had on February 5th. And at that meeting, members of the public were invited to bring their revenue-generating ideas forward to the city council for consideration. 11 speakers provided ideas at that meeting, and afterwards, staff received input from 3 others, and those 3 were also included in this report. There were 3 main themes under which many of the suggestions could be categorized, and those were increased fundraising, changes to our fees and fines, and changes to the fire and our EMS operations. EMS is emergency medical services. I wanted to briefly address these 3 categories. First, with fundraising, we all know that fundraising can provide valuable revenue streams for many nonprofit organizations, but they're not generally used to provide ongoing revenue for government agencies. The staff believes that to engage in a full-scale successful fundraising efforts would put the city in direct competition with many of the nonprofit, service, and cultural organizations that actually help us to provide programs and services to the community, such as the Chamber of Commerce, the VBBA, the Community Clinic, and the Moonlight Cultural Foundation. So staff doesn't recommend moving forward with any new fundraising efforts. In terms of changes to fees and fines, as indicated in the staff report, discretionary funding for local governments is restricted by state law. Taxes can be raised for general purposes, but state law requires that most fees be set at a rate that allows you to recover your costs to provide the program or service for which the fee is charged, but not so that profits could be realized. Fees can be lowered, but raising them must be tied to the cost to provide that program or service. And then the final item had to do with changes to our fire and EMS operations. And in terms of this, I worked with Chief Minnick to evaluate these suggestions because they have a direct impact on public safety services to the community. The effectiveness of the life and property saving services provided by the Vista Fire Department depends on the continuity of operations as well as the ability to be able to effectively treat any situation as quickly as possible. If savings are to be realized through decreasing the cost to provide these types of services, it would need to be through a comprehensive change in operations, as was the case when we removed an ambulance unit from service in January of 2011. However, staff is not recommending any changes to the fire department's operations at this time. So I'm going to provide an overview of the full list of suggestions that were received last month. If you would like any detail at these topics, please let me know. Many people brought forward similar ideas. However, in total, there were 34 unique suggestions presented to the City Council and staff. We separated those 34 into 2 categories. The first category were ideas that have previously been evaluated by staff at some point. 20 of the 34 fell into that section. And the second category were brand new ideas, items that we hadn't evaluated in the past. And the remaining 14 ideas were new to the City Council and staff. Each of the 20 ideas previously evaluated by staff were re-reviewed to determine the status, and at present 11 of those 20 are in various stages of implementation. The remaining 9 ideas were not recommended for implementation. We also analyzed the 14 brand new ideas. 12 are not recommended for implementation, and 2 are recommended for further analysis and possible implementation. On the next 2 slides, I'm going to show the list of the 11 previously identified ideas that are in various stages of implementation. I'm not going to go over everything in detail, but I did want to point out 2 items on this slide, items 3 and item 5. With item 3, the suggestion was to lease or rent the vacant trailer park, the Sycamore Creek site. And as you know, this former mobile home site has been identified as one of our remaining sites to develop senior affordable housing. And we are currently in negotiations with the developer to bring that project forward in the future. And in terms of city fees, it was mentioned by the speaker at the workshop that an across-the-board increase of 2% in all city fees would generate an additional $380,000 each year. However, a review of our fiscal year 2011-12 fees for the general fund, which we categorize in the budget as charges for services, showed a total of approximately $9.8 million. And if we were going to do an across-the-board increase of 2%, that would get us just under $200,000 each year. But as I previously mentioned, and as we discussed in the staff report, we do regularly review fees and recommend increases when they are appropriate, but we can't just raise the fees to increase our profits for general purposes. But since we do review the fees on a regular basis, this suggestion is something that has been implemented in the past and will continue to be implemented as appropriate. On this slide, this is the remaining 5 or 6 ideas that are currently being implemented. I wanted to take a moment to identify slide 6, because the idea was to engage all departments in a review of ways to cut costs and increase revenues, and hold a contest, provide prizes to encourage participation. And I just wanted to make sure the City Council is aware that our staff has been proactive with providing suggestions for revenue generating ideas, ways to cut costs, ways to increase our efficiencies, and they've been doing this proactively without any type of incentive program for the last 5 years since the Great Recession started to impact the City of Vista in 2007. We've received more than 200 suggestions from city employees, and we've evaluated all of them, and many of them were implemented. And that's also one of the reasons why you'll see so many of the ideas that came up on February 5th had already been reviewed. It's because they came from our staff, and we just want to make sure that you guys all knew that as well, because they've been working very hard to help us. I also wanted to mention item 10, which was to get people more involved with city issues and increase awareness of the Shop Vista marketing campaign. And that campaign is spearheaded through the Chamber of Commerce and our Economic Development Department. As you know, we strive to make information available to the community through all sorts of forms. Our citywide newsletter that goes to every address 3 times a year, on our website, we have Facebook, we have Twitter, we have a number of email distribution lists and e-newsletters, and we issue press releases to the UT and other news sources, and we also provide articles for community newsletters. But of course, there's always ways to improve that, so we're going to look for ways to enhance our communication efforts and make sure that everyone knows the positive and the challenges that the city has and how you can get involved. The Shop Vista campaign focuses mainly on the holiday shopping season, but that's something that we could also emphasize year-round, and we'll look for opportunities to do that as well. Do you guys have any questions at this time?
Oh, yeah, we have 2 speakers. Are there any questions of her first?
I'm moving on to the next section. But
I'm sorry. I thought you were done.
Oh, no.
Sorry, Hallie.
Sorry. I'm moving on to the section of previously identified ideas that staff isn't recommending. Okay. So I've just wanted to... That's
why you're asking for questions. Okay, I thought you were... I felt that.
That's okay. The 9 ideas that are listed on this slide were also previously evaluated by staff at some point. We didn't recommend implementation originally, and after re-review, we are still not recommending any of these for implementation. So I'll move on to the new ideas that were brought forward. There were 14 in total. 12 of them staff does not recommend implementing at this time. This slide shows the first 6. The explanations for each of the staff recommendations were provided in the agenda report, and some have been discussed earlier when I identified the 3 overall themes. So unless you have any specific questions about any of these, I will move on to the next slide.
Any questions? No? Seeing none.
Okay, thank you. The final 6 are identified here, and again, we discussed some of the issues here. I did want to point out that there may have been a misconception that the community room, the Morse B. Vance community room, isn't used well, and that we should lower fees so we can increase attraction. That room was rented more than 300 times in the last 12 months, so it is a regularly used space, and I think the community is finding it to be of great benefit. Of the 2 ideas that staff is recommending that we continue to analyze and potentially implement in the future, the first one is to study the utilization of EMTs to operate ambulances rather than paramedics. This was recently announced in the city of Escondido, and they are estimating annual savings of more than $1 million. Escondido had this program in place in prior years, but it was eliminated during the Great Recession. They're bringing it back, and they anticipate achieving these savings through a combination of increased revenues, through ambulance fees, as well as decreased costs. And at this time, staff recommends we just keep a close watch on how this works for the city of Escondido, not make any changes at this time, but keep it on our radar screen to determine if it's something we want to evaluate in the future. The second item has to do with the community rental space. We have a meeting room at Fire Station 5 that's used for fire department training, but it's also available for rental to the public. It is an underutilized space. We didn't have any public rentals in the last year. The rental rate, the recommendation was to decrease the fee, but the rental rate is actually, it's very reasonable. It's the same rate that we charge for the multipurpose room at the Jim Porter Recreation Center, and that space is rented multiple times each month. So I'm not quite sure at this point if it's that people don't know about it or if it's a fee rate. So the staff recommendation at this time is that we increase marketing of this space and try and get the information out there. And if we're finding through feedback that the space just is cost prohibitive for groups, then staff would probably bring back a recommendation to reduce the fee in the future. And this concludes my presentation. I'm available to answer any questions.
Do you have any questions, or would you like to hear the speaker? Councilmember Aguilera.
Yeah, I have a question on number 7, the stop using high-cost sheriff's helicopters for audio announcements and that. My understanding is that we don't pay extra for when the sheriffs call in the helicopter. In other words, if the example I think the city manager gave me was if we use it 20 times here in the city of Vista for the month of March, and San Marcos only uses it 5 times for the month of March, we don't pay any more or any less, or San Marcos doesn't pay any less than we do for our use of the helicopter.
Yes, that's correct. We don't pay for it on a per-use basis, and it's something that the Sheriff's Department makes the call, depending on the incident, whether or not that they determine the helicopter to be necessary.
So it's just really up to the sheriff if they feel they need that backup or need that service.
Correct.
And then the only other way that we could reduce costs with the sheriff would be to take away service.
Correct.
Patrol officer, deputy, gang unit, or something like that.
Mm-hmm. That's correct.
Yeah, and I'm not interested in doing that. So, thank you.
There's no other questions, and I will call the speakers if that's okay. First speaker, Chuck Rabel.
Hello again. Just a couple items. First of all, the red light cameras. All the other cities are doing away with them. I would suggest that you ask the appropriate people through Patrick for an operating statement. How much is it costing? Are we breaking even or losing money or making money? Just a fair question that you people ought to be asking city staff. Next, on item 5, page 3, give the Planning Commission oversight on city projects. I think you're doing them a disservice by not bouncing things off of them. You can always appeal if they say no and bring it here, and you can say yes. But I think you're doing a disservice to those volunteers. And finally, item number 30, sell the Thibodaux substation and the expensive vacant lot next door. In late 2012, it was initiated. I don't understand why there can't be a sign on the property. There's plenty of available and for sale signs all over this city. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rabel. The next speaker is Cliff Kaiser.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. My name is Cliff Kaiser, and I applaud you for having this revenue idea meeting last month. I think the attendance was good, and some of the ideas were very, very good, and I appreciate the staff's evaluation. A couple of brief comments, though, on some of the items. Number 1 on your report is review fees for code violations. I'm not suggesting they be raised, but one of the comments that struck me in this response was local government fees collected are intended to recover the cost of the program. Well, there are a lot of code problems in Vista, especially in the downtown area, not necessarily Main Street, but in the area around downtown where we really want it to look beautiful. we don't have the staff, from what I understand, the code enforcement officers to do that. So we've kind of got a catch-22 here. We're saying that we can't raise fees because we have to pay for the program, but the program's not even being funded to do what it needs to do. Number two, the Moonlight. It certainly is an asset to Vista, but it's one vehicle for the arts community, and there are many entertainment, arts and entertainment, like the Regency Center that has the movie theater. That can be considered a form of arts. There's the little Clay and Latte down there. There's the Arts on Main Street. There's all kinds of venues for arts program, many of them commercial and paved their own way. There's reasons that you guys decide that it's important for us to subsidize this particular arts program while there's other commercial venues that do it on their own. Number three is the Wave. I like the Wave. I consider the Wave like any other city park and is an asset to the community. But it's clearly losing money every year, or most every year. And it is not clear that the trade-off that we get from the school district is equitable. Some years ago, I understand that the actual cost evaluation, time evaluation between school district assets and city assets with regards to those recreational facilities was stopped being calculated on a lot of detail. Some periodic review, I believe, ought to happen to see if we're getting our money's worth out of those school district facilities that we use. And one more item that I can't find, so thank you very much.
I think the review, the wave fees, we're actually doing that as we, aren't we, as we speak?
The wave fees.
The wave fees, or the wave, between the school district and the wave. We've been kind of analyzing that.
Yeah, we've had discussions. We meet quarterly with the school district, and we've had discussions regarding the reciprocal agreement and the equity that goes into that. So that's kind of ongoing.
And actually, if you want to address the code violations, we have some volunteers that actually work for code, but I know that it's complaint driven. So if there's codes that you see that anybody can report any code violations to our city. But we don't just go out there and write tickets to everybody. So, do you want to?
I might comment on that, and it was mentioned in one of the other items regarding code, and that is there's a number of code violations throughout the city. However, there's a number of homeowners in particular and businesses that have code violations that don't realize they're violating the code. And so what we try to do is do outreach to those people first and educate them before we just come driving up to the door and giving them a $100 citation and making their day. Try to educate them. If they don't come into conformance after trying to work with them, then we would initiate a citation process.
Would you, Patrick, also address the red light cameras a little bit about those?
Sure. The red light cameras in Vista, we installed them a little over 9 years ago, I believe. We have them at 5 locations. They were deemed to be the 5 locations that had the worst violations, T-bone violations, red light running, and we did that very particularly, chose those locations. There were some cities that looked at it maybe more as a revenue generator and picked a number of intersections maybe that didn't meet the criteria long term. And when the laws changed, those intersections for some of those cities weren't panning out, and the cities were losing money on them. With Vista, though, we didn't just pick any intersection. We picked the 5 that I mentioned, and the program has not lost money for us. We actually do generate a little bit of revenue. So if it were to go away, it would be revenue out of the city's general fund. But more importantly, it's proven that red light offenses have gone down consistently since the cameras were installed. Vehicle accidents have gone down, and we have not seen rear-end collisions increase like some other locations around San Diego County. And so we think the red light cameras have served Vista well since being implemented.
And it really alleviates the T-bone crashes, the ones that are the dangerous ones, more than that's the most important ones. It's a matter of safety. We have one other speaker, Frank Lopez.
Good evening, Council. First of all, Howard Amon, how come you're not at Rotary right now? Talking about the red light cameras, I was very involved with that years ago, and to me, some cities have taken them out, but when you look at, even if it just, it's even as far as with the money part of it, I think it's still a good idea to continue with them because it does save accidents and problems in our community. I, as a elderly person, get pretty nervous when I come around them because I don't want to get a ticket. Practically gives me a heart attack. But the thing is, I think it's a good thing for our community. Ideas on this, these ideas here on the revenue. As a councilman, I worked on the idea of Shop Vista, and I want to thank the city today for buying those roses that you have out in front. Do you know who you bought them from?
Yes, we do.
Briggs Nursery.
Yes, we bought them locally.
A local company. That's Shop Vista. That's money in this town. I want to thank you for doing that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Lopez. Okay. Do I have any? Councilmember Rigby.
I just want to say thank you once again to the community for coming out to that special meeting that we had so that we could hear some of the ideas coming from the residents of Vista. And I think it's important that the people stay involved and stay engaged and talk to us and tell us what you're thinking. And I really appreciate you coming out and doing that and being here again tonight. Thank you.
Do I have any other? No? Then I would, is this information only? Is this information only? So I don't need a motion, right? So I don't need a motion on that. So that was an information only item. The next item on our agenda is our digital message boards. We'll have a report from Kevin Ham and John Stone. Somebody has a birthday today. I think he has a yellow tie on. His name might be John Stone. Happy birthday.
Good evening, Mayor and members of the council. I'm Kevin Ham, and I'm the Director of Economic Development, and John Stone is the Assistant City Attorney. At the January 8th, 2003 City Council meeting, the City Council directed staff to continue negotiations with CBS on the message board program and to include several additional items in the agreement. Negotiations are continuing. However, the city and CBS have made significant progress, and we are presenting the draft terms for the council's consideration this evening. The draft terms are as follows. Relating to city revenue generation, gross revenues are proposed to be split 52% for the city and 48% for CBS. All operational costs will be borne by CBS out of their share. And in the first 5 years of the agreement, the city will pay for the capital cost of the sign out of their share. In the first 5 years of the agreement, it is anticipated that the city net revenues generated by the two proposed digital message boards will generate between $300,000 and $400,000 net for the general fund. Beginning in year 6, the annual net revenues to the city would increase to between $500,000 and $600,000 in net income. Income projections were ascertained through a competitive bidding process, and when making revenue assumptions, staff is either given the range between the high and the low projections or used the more conservative lower estimate. Regarding the term for the agreement is 10 years, with one 10-year extension and one 5-year extension for a total of 25 years. Concerning the ability to terminate, the agreement may be terminated under the following options. Termination option 1. The city can terminate the agreement at the end of year 10 by providing written notice to CBS before the start of that year. Under this arrangement, the city would experience no out-of-pocket costs and would retain all earnings it had accrued over the term of the agreement. Termination option 2. The city can terminate the agreement at the end of year 7 by providing a written notice to CBS by the middle of year 5. Under this arrangement, the city would experience no out-of-pocket expenses and would retain all earnings it had accrued during the first 4.5 years. However, no earnings would accrue to the city for operations during the second half of year 5 and all of years 6 and 7. Regarding the sign removal, at the termination of the agreement, CBS will remove the message boards and restore the surface of the property and return it to the city in the same condition it existed prior to the installation of the message boards. CBS may retain the footings in place and any portion of the column which is below grade, but they must attractively cap and cover what is left in place and provide appropriate landscaping. With respect to the City of Vista civic and cultural messages, up to 15% of the digital message board content will be used for communicating city messages, such as the Moonlight Stage Productions, the Wave, community information, the Strawberry Festival, and emergency alerts. Civic and cultural messages will be distributed equally throughout the message board's 20-hour operational day. With regard to creating the message board incentive program for Vista businesses of all sizes, staff recommends creating a rebate program for businesses wishing to receive discount message board advertising. The rebate program would be available for large and small businesses. This program could rebate up to 1/2 of the advertising costs for our local businesses. This model allows the city to provide discounted message board time for local businesses and gives us the flexibility to change the program without amending the agreement with CBS. Staff will develop details for this program and will return to City Council for review and approval of the program prior to implementation. Concerning liability, the agreement provides indemnification for the city by CBS for all claims arising out of the message boards. Further, CBS will maintain at their sole cost $5 million in liability insurance per occurrence for all claims arising out of the message boards. It should be noted that CBS has had no claims or settlements relating to parties that claim that the message boards were the cause of their accident. At least one member of the public has stated that a potential lawsuit involving Clear Channel and the City of LA is relevant to the Vista Message Board program. It is not. The LA example involves a closed-room deal in violation of the city's own code for signs owned by the message board company. It is not the message boards that triggered this potential action, but the city not following their own code. In our case, the city has openly and clearly communicated our intentions and our actions. We are following our codes, and the signs will be owned by the city. Regarding message board content, CBS will use its share exclusively for commercial non-political advertising, and CBS reserves the right to reject advertising copy for any reason, but will reject copy for the following specific reasons. The copy is factually inaccurate, misleading, fraudulent, or deceptive. The copy is obscene, offensive, or otherwise inconsistent with local community standards. The copy promotes an illegal activity, and the copy is for a sexually oriented business. If advertising is unsold, CBS will make it available for 501c3 organizations that have messages to communicate. It should also be noted that the 1998 Tobacco Master Settlement Agreement between the states and the cigarette companies banned tobacco advertising on message boards. With respect to the inspection of records, CBS will provide the city with quarterly and annual reports. The city our employees and agents will be able to examine and inspect those books and records for verification purposes. Examinations can be conducted up to 2 years after the city's receipt of those documents. If the City Council is supportive of the draft terms of agreement, staff will work on completing the California Environmental Quality Act requirements, better known as CEQA, and finalize the agreement for CBS for City Council consideration. At the Council meeting, when you will consider the agreement and the CEQA document, the Council will also consider the final design for the message boards. This concludes my presentation. Mr. Stone, several representatives from CBS, and I are available for questions.
Okay, we have, I don't know if you want to do questions first. I have several speakers here. Do you want to hear the speakers first? Okay. Okay, we'll start with Chuck Rabel.
Excuse me. Page 1 talks about City Council directed staff to explore non-traditional creative options. I would like to see fewer and fewer available for rent, for sale signs in both in the business park and in Vista. That's what they're supposed to be doing. The other thing is, I'm old school, all right? Billboards are billboards. They're either analog signs or they're digital. If you call it a digital message board, it doesn't, in my mind, reflect its true what's going on here. The city gets to pay the capital cost in the beginning. That doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Staff recommends a message board rebate up to a half the cost of the advertising. You don't want to get in that business. Let the market do its job. You're going to end up further subsidizing the two car dealers that are already been over-subsidized by the city. Speaking of the civic messages, I noticed today the banner on Vista Village Drive talks about the city's 50th birthday, not about the St. Patty's Day North County parade that's going on this Saturday. I don't know. Sometimes I get lost around here. Thank you very much.
The next speaker will be Mary Lou Cliff.
Good afternoon. I would just like to let everyone know here that I'm in favor of the electronic billboards. I did some research. I know there have been some discussions in the Shadow Ridge area. So I started at Lupine Hills and Shadow Ridge Drive and traveled through some streets and past some businesses and ended up on Sycamore to reach Target, where one of the signs would be posted. That's just a little over a mile. These signs make no noise. There's no light that the billboards would be shining in anyone's homes. The second sign that is over here on Santa Clara is across from the jail, across on 78. And I again say that the signs don't make noise. The light from the signs will not disturb citizens. The signs that is on Santa Clara is over 2 miles away from the Shadow Ridge communities. I do not feel that these signs would harm the quality of life in the Shadow Ridge communities. I've read the staff report, and on page 2 of 5, staff has determined that the 2 sites meet federal, state, and local criteria and submitted the sites to Caltrans for preliminary approval of the siting and safety guidelines. The city received preliminary approval from Caltrans on the sites in December of 2011. I'm sure that our city attorney will be advising on the content of the contract and terms and see that there is adequate liability insurance, audits, and the terms of the years of coverage. The benefits, income from the signs will be generated into the general fund, and it is my hope that this revenue coming in will help us put an ambulance taken out of service in the last year's city budget back in service soon. In closing, I'm in favor of this, and I would hope the council will move forward tonight on this. Thank you.
Thank you. The next speaker will be Erica Leary.
Good evening, Mayor and Council members. Is it possible to show a couple examples? Is that screen thing working or no? Where you put paper down? Do you not have that?
We don't have that anymore.
Oh, sorry. Okay, never mind. So I'm Erica Leary. I'm the program manager for the North Coastal Prevention Coalition, which is managed by Vista Community Clinic. And I'm not here tonight to speak in favor or against digital billboards. Our coalition has used static billboards on numerous occasions to spread the word about social host ordinances and preventing underage drinking. So we recognize the potential for messages along the 78 corridor to reach our population. But I would like you to suggest that you strongly consider the message that you will send to young people and the residents of Vista if you allow alcohol advertising on digital billboards placed on city-owned land. You're already prepared to ban certain kinds of advertising, including obscene or offensive material, sexually oriented businesses, and ads promoting illegal activities such as marijuana use. So why would you choose to allow ads for a product that is associated with the leading causes of death for teens and young adults? This is automobile crashes, homicides, and suicides. Given that alcohol is illegal for those under 21, yet remains the drug of choice for teens, we must step up our efforts to prevent marketing to kids. And that's impossible if it's flashing along our freeway where there's no off button and no alternate routes. 20% of 11th graders in the Vista Unified School District report binge drinking, that's 5 or more drinks on one occasion in the past month. And beer and liquor are the most common beverages of choice for teens, and they're also the most commonly advertised on billboards. I had a few samples from the internet, so I can pass those down the line. I understand your intention is also to promote local businesses, including Vista's craft brewing industry. And I think there must be a reasonable compromise where local businesses can still advertise their events without featuring images of alcohol or direct marketing of alcohol, and that you prohibit corporate advertising of alcohol products. There was a RAND study that in 2005 conducted a large-scale drug prevention study, and the researchers found that nearly half of 7th grade non-drinkers became drinkers by 9th grade. And the more ads youth saw during their 8th grade year, the greater likelihood they fell into one of the groups of 9th grade drinkers. Alcohol advertising clearly affects adolescent drinking behavior. These billboards will be on city land, and you are establishing the rules and guidelines. While your primary motive is economic, our young people shouldn't be asked to pay the price. Thank you for your time this evening, and I look forward to seeing several of you on Thursday morning at our 20-year anniversary. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Cliff Kaiser.
Good evening again, Mayor and Council. This billboard issue is close to a lot of our hearts, and we could argue all day and into the night about whether it's a visual blight to our community or whether there's a safety issue and many of the other things. And that would be a good debate, but my understanding is you don't want to hear it. And that's all opinion, that we go back and forth, because there's nothing going to say whether it's really a safety issue or not. It's somebody's study saying one thing and somebody else's study saying another thing. But from the research that I could tell, there is one thing that appears to be a real fact. Carlsbad did not allow billboards because they didn't want it in their community. Now, at the same time, they made some silly decisions and put in a $70 million golf course at taxpayer expense. Oceanside is going to put in billboards on the freeway. So they made I think, some silly decisions going in that direction as well. The County of San Diego is considering billboards on public property. But Vista's the only one that has outlawed CBS and other commercial entities from putting billboards in Vista because the city of Vista, as a city, says, we want that money. We want to control that content. We want this for us. No other city is doing that. No other county is doing that I can tell. That seems to be odd. One other thing on the billboard is the content. The lady just mentioned about it being inconsistent, offensive, some of the things there. I suppose we could put a lot of things in that category, such as gambling. I mean, we already have those on the billboards that are on the freeway right now. That might be considered inconsistent with local community values. That ought to be in that category of unallowed content, perhaps. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Brett Schatzenbaugh.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council. My name is Brett Schanzenbach. I'm the CEO of the Vista Chamber of Commerce. And I'm here to speak on behalf of the Board of Directors. The Board is in favor of the staff's proposal to move forward with the digital billboards for a variety of reasons. Number one, it's definitely an innovative revenue source. In these challenging economic times, it's nice to have revenue sources that don't involve fees or taxing of businesses or local citizens in any way. And we feel that they've done a decent job of finding an innovative solution to bring some revenue in that doesn't involve that. Also, there's no upfront cost to the city to bring this into being, which is nice in that you won't have to spend a lot of money to make this happen. And also, it is nice to be an early adopter when doing something innovative. Other cities, as have been mentioned, Escondido already has digital billboards. Oceanside is bringing them to town. The county's looking at them. But being an early adopter, would allow you to generate some revenue from those different enterprises that like this medium. And if you're first, you have a chance to bring them into your community first, if those are available. Plus the discount to Vista businesses. I think that that's a positive. The system that the staff has come up with to do it. It could be debated whether that's a great way or not a great way, but I think under the circumstances, what they've come up with is a decent methodology to provide Vista businesses a discounted way to take part in this system were it to be approved by you tonight. So I think that's a positive that they've done that. So the Chamber is in favor of this, and we look forward to hopefully seeing it come to fruition.
Thank you. Pam Wilson.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council members. My name is Pam Wilson. I'm an attorney, and I'm here tonight on behalf of Scenic San Diego, which is a recently formed affiliate of Scenic America, which is the major nonprofit in the country that tries to preserve strict sign laws. I submitted written comment to you when you considered this in January. Unfortunately, that night I had a conflict. I couldn't be here, so I'm here tonight. I submitted some written some written comment to you again tonight, and also a case, basically substantiating what I said in my comments in January. If you allow this only for the city of Vista, you are opening up the door to these signs all over the city for the very simple reason that the city cannot constitutionally give itself a monopoly on a profit-making venture like this on city property, and say private property owners cannot do the exact same thing. So while you appear to be here considering just 2 signs in the city, the inevitable result of this, if you continue forward with this without thorough legal analysis, is that you will then be sued by private property owners who want to put these signs on their property. And based on the case I submitted to you with my comment today, which is Lamar Advertising versus Utica in Michigan, the federal court ruled that an ordinance like that was invalid. So you are opening yourself up to costly litigation. And I also mentioned in my comment letter the dispute in Los Angeles, and the reason it's relevant is just to give a measure of the cost that you could be faced with. The city of Los Angeles is now being threatened with $100 million worth of damages from the outdoor advertisers after the court ruled that the deal the city made with them was improper. And I don't know all the particulars, but it's the same basic fact pattern that you are walking into. The Lamar case was an ordinance that was proposed by CBS Outdoor, the same exact people you're dealing with here. And I've asked in my letter in January, and I'm asking again, I can't find anything in the record that your city attorney has researched for you and clearly informed you about where this might take you. The idea of revenue, all cities are facing this challenge, obviously. But here, you're opening a Pandora's box to a much bigger cost, something that could well exceed the $5 million insurance policy you've asked CBS to obtain. So, Mike, I looked at your ordinance. You clearly have banned all new billboards for several years, and you're carving out, an exception just for city, on the city property. I mean, just commonsensically, you've got to wonder, could that really pass constitutional muster? It's a monopoly type of situation, and it's been found not proper. So, at the minimum, I would urge you to ask your city attorney to come back with a thorough analysis of the scope of potential impacts of carving out this exception and looking at this Utica case so that you don't wind up with now being sued a couple years from now, and then you've got to put billboards all over the city. And,
your time is up.
Okay. So I would just ask you to do that, and also the other question for your lawyer would be, does this indemnity include litigation between the city and CBS? Thank you.
We have both of our lawyers sitting here, so they're hearing your comments. Next speaker is Bill Martin.
Good evening, Mayor Ritter, members of the council. My name is Bill Martin, and I'm still committed opponent to these signs. Tonight I wanted to talk about one of the terms in particular, term number 5. And I think we all remember when we were here last time that there was, even those of us who are opposed to these signs recognize that there are some benefits to them in allowing some of our community organizations opportunities to get their messages out. And you saw the Moonlight, VVBA, and several others come up here and thank you for giving them that 15% of message time. But when you look at this term, is that really what they're going to receive? I don't think they will. What the term says is up to 15%. And so what does that mean? I would submit that in the context of this contract, that if the city gives them a fraction of 1% of message time, the city's fulfilled its obligation under the contract. Is that really what we've promised our organizations? So what I would suggest is that you direct the staff to change that term to say at least 15% or no less than 15% of message time will go to our community-based organizations. I think that's what they expect. I believe that's what you promised. And I would suggest that you ask for that change. Thank you.
Next speaker is Frank Lopez.
Frank Lopez, 721 South Santa Fe Vista. Billboards. About 4 buildings away from my business, I have a billboard on top of a building called a roof sign. 2 years ago, the city made me knock mine down, a roof sign. 6 months ago, they gave a downtown business a warning to knock his roof sign down. It didn't go down. But someone on the council says, oh, I like his sign. Well, this is called double standards with this council. Now, you have a billboard down from where you're going to build this billboard, one that's there presently that would like to redo his. But the city, no, knock it down. The city, I'm telling you, like a lady spoke, you are going to have problems here. And it's going to cost you a lot more than the $450,000 that you're making a year. I mean, I'd love to have the $450,000 for our general plan. I mean, the count. But we are going to have problems here with this. If you allow double standards, continue to allow double standards, then you will be hearing from an attorney, from me, on the roof signs, because it's not fair for this city to change their minds, when it's someone they want and someone they care about out in the community. It is wrong to do that. So, I'm been talking to a couple attorneys, and I will pick the one I want, and I will be talking to you guys, because that is not right for this council just to pick and choose who they want. Thank you.
Stephanie Jackal. Stephanie's our last speaker.
Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Stephanie Jackal, 1500 Green Oak Road. I know this is a cry in the wilderness. I totally, completely understand your financial constraints as far as revenue. I just have to say, I believe this is so wrong for Vista, for our beautiful community, for our present and our future. I do hope you find a way to say no to the billboards. Thank you.
Thank you. Do I have any speakers? Any of our council have comments? Councilmember Rigby.
Sorry. I did have a couple of concerns. I'm still opposed to the digital billboards on every level, and but I did have a couple of concerns, particularly on the contract. And somebody brought it up as well, that it says for community groups up to 15%, but there was no lower level that we're guaranteed that our community groups and nonprofits will get. And that was of concern for me, that that our community groups and our community messages and our nonprofits should have a minimum number. So I think we need to address that as well. And the other thing is, and regarding local businesses, you see the billboards, whether they're static or they're digital, and they're all the same companies that are advertising, and it's all the same companies and businesses that you see on television, the national brands, the national chains, a couple of local businesses, but not a lot. One of the issues that had come up, or comments that had come up previously, was that we want to promote our community. We want to promote our businesses in Vista to get people to come into Vista. And I'm concerned that, A, we're going to have some of these large chains or casinos that are going to come in and buy up the advertising time up front, and local businesses won't have an opportunity to even get any available time. So that's of concern for me. And I really wouldn't want to see all of the casinos and some of the other national chains taking up all of the time. I would like to see our local mom and pop shops get some of that time and be advertising to our residents and our communities here. So those are some of the things that I was concerned about, and I know that the contract hasn't been put together yet, but those are some of the things that I think should be addressed. Minimum time are no less than amount versus a higher end on that, and making sure that our local businesses are represented. And I think it's important when the contract comes out and we look at the fees that are going to be charged. Can our local businesses afford to be advertising up there? I don't want the fees to be so much that our local businesses, our mom and pop shops, can't even afford to advertise to their own community. That would just really be very sad as far as I'm concerned. So when we're looking at the overall of this, I'm still voting no on every level for the billboards, but if this does in fact go forward, I want to make sure that our community is protected and our business people are protected.
Thank you. Councilmember Aguilera.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yeah, I just had a question about the 15%. I mean, to me, it's pretty clear, but is there a better way we can word that would make the public feel more comfortable about that? I mean, it makes sense to me, but...
we could put a floor. The intent was that we would have up to 15%. We most likely would use that time. However, the time that is unsold goes back into the pot to be sold. So if we have in place a plan where we need to give CBS a heads up 6 months out that in fact we may not sell all 15% of our time, then that's revenue that could be generated. But we could easily come up with a floor if that's something we needed.
Because one of my concerns that I discussed with the city manager on this was what happens to the unsold 15%, like you're discussing here. You know, I mean, if let's say XYZ nonprofit want to advertise, but that only takes up 10% of the time, what happens to the excess 5%? And he explained to me that we would sell that and the city would get that money back as well. And if we had nonprofits, like I was asking the question, how about in our times of the year where our nonprofits are somewhat quiet and we have very little or no advertisement, is that 15% still available for sale, and would we get the money on that? And the answer that he gave me was yes, we would. So
that is correct.
I'd be afraid of putting an absolute minimum and then having to scrounge up nonprofits too to fill the spots. So is the way it's written, I mean, is there any question that we couldn't absolutely use the 15% at 365 days of the year if we wanted to, if we had nonprofits that met our criteria?
We can use the 15 all the way up to the 15% as long as we want.
So in other words, CBS isn't going to be able to say, oh, this month we're only going to give you 10.
No.
Right?
Let me clarify. The goal of it was saying up to 15%, because if there's months where we only have 10% or 5% to be used, like Mr. Ham said, 5 or 10% of that could go back into the pot to be sold, of which we receive almost half or a little more than half the profit. But if there's 15% of the time to be made up by nonprofits and civic messages, then 15% it is.
Yeah. So, okay. I think I'm comfortable with that then.
So while you're talking about that, so does the 15% include both local and civic messages where we're going to rebate the 50%, or is that for just the...
Yeah. The 15% is just for the civic and the cultural messages, as we identified, that are for civic purposes or nonprofits. The 10% of the time, which is the rebate time that Mr. Ham discussed, that is separate and aside from the 15%.
And so how much of, for local messages, all the rest of it's available for us to sell and to rebate, or no?
No, 10% for the local messaging is which we would propose to develop a rebate program that would be used for local dealers, whether large businesses, small businesses, whoever
So altogether is
wanted
25%?
up to 25%, because there may be a time, similar to the 15% scenario, where on the rebate side, the 10% of local businesses, we don't have 10%. And so that amount of time would just stay within the time frame. And I might have jumped off base a little bit to say that with the rebate program, that 10% of time is already part of the advertising time that CBS would already sell. We'd just be giving a rebate for local businesses up to 10% of the time with businesses that were pre-approved that have paid their fees to CBS.
What if more businesses, what if we sold up to 50% of all the advertising, if our city sold that? We're not going to rebate on all of it?
No, it'd be up to 10%.
Only 10%?
Yeah, unless the council wanted to continue to further subsidize that and generate less revenue.
No, okay. No. Okay, so let's see, I have my speakers.
I have one more question.
Okay, John, sorry.
This is for Mr. Stone. I read this thing from Scenic San Diego earlier today, and I did have some questions whether this case even applies to, I mean, I believe this is in New York. I don't know, Utica, I don't know where that is, but how does that fit here? Or does it?
That's a good question, Councilman Aguilera. The case does not apply in California. It's actually an order from a court which is from the Eastern District of Michigan's Southern Division of the Federal District Court. And so what actually governs in California are the California courts or the Ninth Circuit. In this case, the ordinance that's been prepared has followed and closely tracked a Ninth Circuit decision, which is the federal appeals court that governs the 11 states, the 9 states in the western United States. So that is the case that we'd be relying on. It's called the Metrolights case. Beyond that, this particular case that was referenced has very different facts. For instance, in that case, the Planning Commission essentially overrode an ordinance to allow for a privately owned digital message board to be erected in contravention of the code that would apply otherwise, which is very different than the situation we have here, which is a publicly owned digital message board. And then, I should point out that there's was some reference in the oral testimony regarding monopolies, and that the First Amendment wouldn't allow for a monopoly of this sort. I wouldn't really describe it as a monopoly, but in any event, the particular case is, by my reading, doesn't make any reference to monopolies. But the Ninth Circuit happened to address that issue, and it said the First Amendment does not prohibit municipal monopolies. So that's what the Ninth Circuit says, and so I would have to respectfully disagree with the comments that were made.
Thank you, Mr. Stone. No more questions.
Okay, and I would say that all the money is coming back to the community. It isn't like a business private business that's taking the money. The money's all coming back to the community. It's going to make our community better. So I still have more speakers. Councilmember Coles.
Yes.
No, your Deputy Coles.
Okay.
Deputy Mayor Coles.
I think most of my questions have been answered with regard to the 15% issue. So if we can clarify that language, that doesn't make it seem as though if they gave us 1%, they would be meeting their obligation. I think you've clarified that, at least verbally, to my satisfaction, and if it can be reflected in the written agreement, I would appreciate that. And thank you, Mr. Stone, for the commentary on the legal challenges, because we've seen several that don't seem to be apply or pertinent to our situation directly here. Councilmember Rigby's concern about affordability for our own businesses, that is something that I would like to at least have some feeling for, because I would hate for our people to be priced out of the business. I know at one of the first meetings where we had discussion about this, one of the downtown business people, when it was at that time, the proposal was to restrict it to only the largest businesses, and the appeal was don't leave us smaller guys out, and suggested that they could even pool resources. And so I would hope that with our rebate program or whatever, that we do give an affordability edge to local businesses, whether they pool their resources or if they're healthy enough to go on their own. I really, one of my main, the two things that have made me really excited about this was, one, the revenue generation that comes really as discretionary funds into our weak coffers, and number two, the opportunity to really promote a lot of Vista, not only the businesses that we have, some of the unique attractions that we have, but also just the flavor of our community, and I think this will be an opportunity to do that. I've become, in the last 6 months, I've become very aware of signage, stuff that I used to didn't pay any attention to. Now I see everything, and I look intently at it, and I've seen a number of signs almost identical, I think, in concept to what we're talking about on the roadways over toward Palm Springs, on the 111 in Palm Springs, which is a pretty upscale area, and they have these spaced along there to promote the community and businesses, and I haven't found them to be distasteful personally, and I know everybody has their own opinions about that, but I look forward to finalizing and tweaking the agreement so that we can move forward with it if that's still possible. Thank you.
So I have a question. The 10%, if that ends up being just one business, I mean, we don't know the pricing on everything, so it might be one business equals 10%. I wouldn't think so, or one or two, and one or two big businesses took that. Then, but this is our city rules. That's our city, so we can look at that. If it comes to that, then we can look at that and say, well, wait a minute, 10%. We need to make it 20 or 25. We can do that, right?
Mayor, I was going to say that the price per flip, there's 8 advertisements that run for a 4-week period, and they're 8 seconds each. Each of those flips, if you will, are estimated to be about $3,500. So that means that they would be able, $3,500 isn't a lot. It's a lot for a small business maybe, but we've come up with a few ideas on how to make it work. Maybe a split screen. So 2 businesses could share 1 screen. And if it was subsidized at 50%, then the cost of that is only $1,750. And they could split that cost.
But 10% is how much of the flips of the, I guess
that would be just a little under about 1 flip for each of the panels.
So if that's 1 flip, then that would just be 1 business that would get a 10% rebate. I guess that's what I was looking at. So, if say the BMW or the Ford took that one and they get their 50%, then that doesn't leave anything left for the little businesses. That's my concern.
Well, we'll have to come up with a policy that makes it so if someone's in the queue, and let's say one of our auto dealerships, and they receive the subsidy, they go down to the bottom. And those businesses in that queue of businesses who would like to participate needs to be fair. So in that policy we bring back, we'll address to make sure that it's fair and affordable.
Yeah, that. Yeah, maybe.
What about if we just did like some kind of a policy whether it was 1 time or 2 times a year, that's it? You know, I mean, because somebody like North County Ford and
they'll purchase the whole year.
Yeah, well, so they get one month. That's it.
Well, as Mr. Hamm mentioned, we'll develop a policy for your review, and we'll try to come up with some equitable manner so that each business at least gets a chance or a bite at the apple, so to speak.
Okay, I just want to be sure that it's going to be fair. So, Councilmember Rigby.
Thank you. I actually hit my light again because I wanted to clarify on that other case that was brought to our attention regarding Utica, I think it was. So you answered that question as far as to relevance in this case for us, although I'm not sure we're finished with that. You know, I'm not sure that we've heard the end of that, but thank you for the clarification on that. And as far as the 15%, I read it, I do understand it, and I understand that it's written that they're obligated to provide up to 15% for us, but they're not obligated to provide a minimum for us. And maybe just that contract law class at USD, but I would like to see the clarification in there that not only are they obligated to provide this much, but we actually are guaranteed a minimum amount as well. So thank you for that.
Okay, then I have another question. So if it's, are they limited to, like, we're talking a type of business, so say, and I guess I always use the BMW, but so say they purchased it, so then could also Carlsbad BMW purchase an ad on the same flip? So can two business, similar business, or, same businesses from competing businesses, I guess I would say?
They could,
they
yes.
Could.
But Carlsbad will pay more.
Carlsbad. They'll pay more, okay. And the contract does address repairs in here, so that if there's any repairs to the sign, that they're responsible for that.
CBS is responsible for the repairs, the upkeep, and the replacement of the sign at the point in time that it needs to be replaced.
Okay, so I guess that answers my questions. Are there any other questions? Councilmember Coles, you're done. Okay. Then I guess, do you have enough direction from us? Do you need a motion? Do you have enough direction? Okay, if you have enough direction from us, then we'll move on to the next item, which is Paseo Santa Fe Streetscape and Infrastructure Plans. I guess so, didn't they? John Meyer and John Connolly are going to take this, it looks like.
Good evening, Mayor and member of the City Council. The work product this evening is a culmination of many meetings and workshops over many, many years. The Council's and community's goal has been to turn Paseo Santa Fe excuse me, into a vibrant destination-oriented mixed-use district that provides dining, shopping, and residential opportunities. Elements include creating a pedestrian-oriented, unified streetscape, expand parking opportunities, and improve infrastructure and stormwater facilities. Leading up to tonight's meeting, these plans have been reviewed and accepted by the Planning Commission at its February 19th meeting, and presentations were made to the Chamber of Commerce and Vista Village Business Association, and staff has also met with several property owners. The location of the project runs along South Santa Fe from Main Street down to Civic Center. This aerial photo shows the northern edge, which is basically Broadway down to Guajome, and then on from Guajome down to Civic Center Drive. We've already reviewed the elements. This is an overview of the entire project. We do, with the loss of redevelopment, we've lost a key tool in the revitalization toolbox. And so as a result, the changes, we've seen very numerous iterations of the plan over the years. And so we've had to scale back from those various iterations. So the plan before you this evening shows these streetscape improvements within the existing right-of-way. Another fallout of the loss of redevelopment is the necessity to have to build this project in phases. At this time, we foresee 3 basic phases. The first phase would be from Broadway to Terrace. The second phase would be from Terrace through the Guajome intersection. And the third phase would be from Guajome all the way down to Civic Center. Key elements of this project would be to reduce the current 4 lanes of traffic to 2 lanes and incorporate 3 traffic circles, 1 at Eucalyptus, 1 at Paula Vista, and then the redesigned interchange with Guajome and Terrace. The first phase of the design will be built in conjunction with the recently approved Paseo Point housing project, which is located between Broadway and Ocean View. The second phase and the third phase will be subject to funding availability. Here we see an enlargement of the area in front of the Paseo Point Affordable Housing Project, and we start to see some of the key elements of the project's design. We see the 1 lane of traffic in each direction. We see the parallel parking on one side of the street and angled parking on the other. We see the large roundabout at Eucalyptus. This is a cross-section that again shows the relationship of the 2 types of parking, the single lane and the sidewalk. This is a detail of how the roundabout will work that will allow for the realignment of Guajome and Terrace. These are features that will be found in the various roundabouts. One of the key elements of this design is the widening of the sidewalk to create a better pedestrian environment along Paseo Santa Fe. The sidewalk is broken into 3 different sections. The first section is a 2-foot buffer zone, which is adjacent to the curb, which allows for people to get out of their car, which allows for the angled parking cars to overhang without interfering. The second area is utility or the amenity zone, and then that is 3 feet wide, and then a 7-foot sidewalk. You can see this again in the aerial view. The proposed finishes at this time are in the buffer zone, just a plain concrete concrete. In the amenity zone, it'll be a pervious paver that will allow water to seep through. And then in the pedestrian area, it's a combination of plain concrete and then also blocks of enhanced concrete. We have received feedback about the relationship of the colors and also whether or not we should use some integral color in the sidewalk itself. And as we move forward with the construction drawings and we have a better idea on the construction costs, we'll revisit those and bring those back to you. In the amenity zone, we also see the location of the street trees and the street lights. Another key feature of this project is the stormwater. This exhibit is exaggerated to show that where the water drains, the street cross-section will not be that steep. The stormwater in the travel lanes will flow to the middle of the street where there is a cobble inlet that again will collect and store the stormwater. The sidewalks will drain towards the curb. It'll have the pervious pavers and then also in the gutter. Another green feature of the project is these modular cells that will be located underneath the street trees. Again, this is a storm. It's twofold. It collects the storm water, but it also allows for a better root zone for the health of the street trees. The street lights will be consistent with the street lights that we see in the downtown area and the Vista Village. We have received feedback about concerns about their the lighting, and we assure you that the light fixtures themselves will be the most recent that will provide the sufficient lighting. This slide represents other street furnishings, the stop signs and bollards, again, consistent with the design of the street lights. Here's examples of street furniture. Some of the other elements, this is an information kiosk that will include both opportunities for information posters as well as for street signs. One of the other feedback we received was, would there be sufficient street signage? And in addition to these locations, street signage will also be incorporated into the roundabouts and also in mid-block locations. This feature is found at the roundabout. It provides opportunities for additional seating and also for the display of public art. In addition to the other benches, we have custom benches, this one and the next one, that utilize the stylized V into the design of the benches. This slide shows how the various elements can be incorporated, the combination of benches and landscaping. It provides a lot of flexibility, and as projects go in, we can look and see what's best for that individual project or business. This is the fencing detail that goes around the roundabout. And then this again gives us an opportunity to look at how all of those different elements come together. In addition, there are other things that are being worked into the project design. There is a proposed gateway at both the north and south location. At the north location, it'll be just south of Broadway, and during the construction drawing phase, we'll bring back a final design of that. In addition, there's also opportunities within this design to include other types of public art. If it was the desire to expand the Kites Over Vista, there are locations within these improvements to accommodate that. The plant material, these show the specimen-sized trees that will be in two of the roundabouts. Also, the promenade tree, which will be the tree along the sidewalk, and that is more of a pedestrian-oriented tree. And then for the vehicles to create that colonnade effect, we're proposing the palm trees that will be out in the finger planters. There was a concern raised about how the street trees will interface with the signage on the individual buildings. This particular street tree, the Chanticleer pear, was specifically picked. It's a narrow tree with a pyramidal column, and they are 48 feet. There is 48-foot spacing between them, so we feel there will be ample windows to view the individual buildings' signs. Wrapping it up, here's two visual simulations, an aerial overview, and then also a streetscape. That concludes staff's presentation. Mr. Conley and I are here to answer any questions, as is Tony Lawson, our landscape architect.
I don't have any speakers for this. I don't see any speaker slips. Anybody have any questions?
Just a comment. I'm pleased with this report, and the beautification looks really promising. So thank you for all the work you've done on this, and hope we can continue to move forward.
Councilmember Aguilera.
Yeah, I just kind of, want to reiterate Councilman Cole's comments. I'm real pleased that we're moving forward with this. I know that all of us up here have promised the city that we were going to move forward with this project, and you guys are helping us find ways to do that. I don't know how, but you guys are putting the hard work in. We're getting the credit for it. So I do want to thank you for doing that, and your staff for helping us. Just one quick, just so I'm clear, the first roundabout would go in with the first project?
Correct.
Okay, that's exciting.
At Eucalyptus.
Great. Okay, thank you.
I don't see anybody else. I have a question. You said it was from Broadway to Terrace. Why is it not from Main Street to Terrace?
Well, it is from Main Street, but most of the new improvements will start at Broadway. That's where it'll start transitioning from 4 lanes down to 2 lanes.
Okay. And are we still thinking about the overhead arch?
Yeah, the Gateway Arch, yes.
The Gateway Arch? Okay, and then let's see. The street lights, okay, I just look at those street lights and I see them on Main Street. I want to know if you could, on Broadway they have double heads, and I know that they're going to be brighter LED lights or whatever, but still, the ones on Broadway have double heads, and it increases the lighting, and I just want to be sure we don't end up with another dark street like Main Street. So could you, I don't know, the difference in cost or whatever, could you just look into that?
We will certainly investigate that.
On those, I like the little lights, I like the style, I just am worried about that. And then also, I didn't see any bike racks, so I was thinking maybe by the commercial, where the commercial building is.
I went through the slide fairly quickly, and I can go back.
No,
but,
you don't have to go back.
One of the bollards has
it does have the bike
wings on it that will serve as a bike rack.
Okay, will just serve as one? Are they going to chain it, or is it a real bike rack?
Well, it would require the cyclist to have his own chain or cable.
Let me see if I had any other. I had a bunch of questions here. Let me just see here if there's any more. Double lights. I guess that was it. And I guess as part of this is the park. There at the Passive Park is part of this streetscape. Is going to be at the same time.
Yeah, the park is part of the housing development.
Oh, so it's not part of the streetscape.
Correct.
Oh, okay.
The streetscape is relying on the project to move forward.
Okay.
All 3 items would, all 3 elements would be constructed at the same time or near the same time.
Okay, that's all of my questions. Anybody else have any questions? Do you have enough direction from us? I mean, we like it. Move forward. Yeah, keep moving.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. With that, we will move on to our next item, which is a public hearing. And the first public hearing is the appeal of the Planning Commission denial of public hearing PC 8-237, which is Chevron. So we're going to open the public hearing, and we're going to resume the public hearing. So Patsy Chow and John Conley will be taking this.
Good evening, Mayor Ritter, council members, Patsy Chow, City Planner, Community Development Department. The item before you this evening is a request for a special use permit to allow sales of alcoholic beverages for off-site consumption at 2295 South Melrose Drive, which is an existing Chevron gas station. With that request, the applicant has requested specifically to allow for type 20 beer and wine sales. There are some minor improvements that go along with the request within the existing Food Mart store, which is the display cooler sales area and some storage area for beer and wine. On December 18th, 2012, the Planning Commission denied the special use permit request for the sale of alcoholic beverages for off-site consumption. And on December 26, 2012, there was an appeal of the Planning Commission's denial filed by Chevron, which brings us here today. The proposed location, existing Chevron gas station located at the northwest corner of South Melrose Drive and Sycamore, is shown on this slide, immediately abutting the Melrose Square Shopping Center, and further to the north, west, and south, their residential single-family properties, as shown on this picture. When it comes to special use permit for alcoholic beverages for off-site consumption, we have to recognize the 3 findings for a special use permit. The first finding is that the proposed use at the particular location is necessary or desirable to provide an activity that will contribute to the general convenience or welfare of the neighborhood. Finding number 2 is that the proposed use is reasonably compatible with those permitted in the surrounding areas. And finding number 3, that the proposed use under the circumstances of the particular case will not be detrimental to the health, safety, and welfare of persons residing in the vicinity of the proposed use. With these findings in mind, the proposed sales of alcoholic beverages for off-site consumption is not necessary and desirable at this location because there are multiple establishments in the adjacent neighborhood center as well as the immediate vicinity area that are selling alcoholic beverages for on-site and off-site consumption. And I list these particular establishments in more in detail in the staff report in the resolution as well. Based on previous recent testimony received regarding alcoholic beverages sales for off-site consumption in the particular neighborhood in the immediate vicinity area, an additional alcohol off-sale license would be detrimental to health, safety, and welfare in the immediate neighborhood area in terms of increasing the opportunity for crime occurrences. With that, the staff's recommendation is for the City Council to adopt resolution denying the special use permit for sale of alcoholic beverages for off-site consumption at 2295 South Melrose Drive. This concludes staff's presentation. We're available for any questions you may have. Thank you.
Do I have any questions? I have several speakers here. You want to listen to the speakers first? Yes. Okay, first one is Christopher Johnson.
Mayor, members of council, good evening. My name is Chris Johnson, 1362 Isabella Way. I'm just here tonight to express my support for the denial of the special use permit for Chevron based on the simple fact, which Ms. Chow just pointed out here. There's plenty of facilities that sell beer and wine in the vicinity. The Melrose Square that's right there already has, I believe, 4 outlets that sell or serve alcohol. I know there was quite a lot of discussion regarding the beer and wine store that's a stone's throw from the gas station right there. As well, up Melrose, we have plenty of grocery stores and gas stations, drugstores, breweries up Sycamore, other stores up Sycamore. So within just a mile's radius, there's plenty of establishments that sell this type of beverages to the public. So there really isn't that convenience factor. I could see if there was nothing else there that maybe, but it just doesn't offer any type of convenience for the community or the residents. So just wanted to come out tonight and express that opinion. Thank you.
Renee Glotzbaugh.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council members. I'm here tonight to support your denial on 8237 as it is right. As Rancho Buena Vista High Schools are seeking to be safe, the students, to provide them with safe gas stations that sell only safe beverages that are alcohol-free. That is the way to be, as there are 7 established alcohol licenses in the surrounding area of 8237, which includes 3 Albertsons, 1 CVS, the second, and 7-Eleven near Rancho Buena Vista High School, and adding 1 more for the road would be 8 too many for their safety and not enhance the qualities of their lives. I appreciate your Vista's mission statement. We believe in striving for ever greater heights. We believe in pushing boundaries. We believe in that everyone has within them the ability to be great, genuinely caring for what's important to our employees, our listeners, our advertisers, and communities we serve. We connect people to people, products and services that enhance the qualities of their lives. And I'm so glad that you denied this, because don't drink and drive. Thank you very much.
Thank you. John Jorgensen.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is John Jorgensen. I'm a district sales manager for Chevron. I operate 125 company-owned and company-operated sites in Southern California, including this one on Melrose. It's been under my leadership for the last 10 years. I don't want to talk about who's got alcohol, who doesn't, but I will talk to you about our operations and what we do to become a responsible retailer. Currently in my group, we operate 94 ABC license or sites with alcohol. 17 of those are listed in this in the San Diego area. We have an extensive training program for all of our employees, including a recertification program on an annual basis. This safety, compliance is a big component of what we do. It's not about profits, it's about compliance. We do a self-shop. Lady addressed teenage drinking earlier. We have a private organization that comes out 4 times a year and shops our locations for age-restricted products. We have a severe discipline program if they fail. Store managers are terminated. Employees are disciplined as well. So we take the whole responsible retailer around alcohol very serious. The connotations that come across as convenience stores is a bad place to shop. We fight against that. We also do a customer service shop. We're 6 times a year. A private company comes through, tests our location for compliance on signage, compliance on bathrooms, compliance on our overall store conditions. I can tell you that we do what's called an extra mile star shop, that we do that 6 times a year. Our district has won the national group for the last 7 years. We do it at a 99.8% clip. Customer First is another program we use where folks come through and actually check our customer service, all the rest of the avenues of surrounding a pleasant shop, including bathrooms, store conditions, and so on. We've ranked #1 in that group for the last 7 years as well, coming in at a score of about 99.8%. Age restricted, we've been in a program for 7 years doing that. We shop our 125 stores 4 times a year. Our success rate, and it's our group, we send folks in less than 30-year-olds, and if they don't check IDs, or we check IDs, if they look 30 or less, we have a 94.6% success rate from last year. We're involved in the community. We were involved in this local community. Last year we raised $894,000 for 5 various charities. Several of them are in San Diego area. Father Joe's, Martha's Village. We raised money for Rainey's under our Children's Miracle Network funding. I saw somebody talk about Earth Day next week. 150, or 2 weeks from now, 150 of our store employees will be attending a restoration project in Bolsa Chica wetlands to pull weeds, pick up trash, and do the rest. We're a very serious retailer. We have a 17 Steps to Sundown, which is a program that requires our swing shift, graveyard people to check outsides for loitering, for cars that shouldn't be there, people that shouldn't be there, make sure all our lights are working, just basically a safety check for our folks. Anyway, we're a responsible retailer. That's what we do. We take it very serious. We're not the typical piece of the convenience store world that you see and that you're right. We take nuisance very seriously. We take alcohol sales very seriously. We take our jobs very seriously. And we take our involvement in the community very seriously. So with that, we're asking for acceptance of a CUP, and we'll prove it to you that we're a responsible retailer.
Thank you.
Okay.
The next speaker is Bruce Evans.
It's a little low. Good evening. My name is Bruce Evans. I represent Chevron as the applicant's representative. Normally I would go first, but before I told you why we disagree with the staff report, I thought it would be best that you hear from John directly about how Chevron runs its stores. If you've ever been to that store, it's the cleanest gas station you've ever seen. And it's the way that they run their stores, they were disappointed and a little bit surprised by that staff report, which we think makes a lot of assertions and conclusions that aren't supported by the facts. Earlier, and it's in the resolution, it references existing establishments within the immediate vicinity. As the gentleman pointed out earlier, the closest existing establishment that sells alcohol for off-premises consumption is a mile away. The closest convenience store use is 1.5 miles away. In that packet of materials, we've provided you a map. So the other conclusion, of course, in the report is that approval of this use is going to lead to crime and cause the rundown of the neighborhood. We don't accept that. That would be unacceptable to Chevron, to run their stores that would cause that type of nuisance. We are not naive about the potential impacts of alcohol, but there's nothing about those concerns, which are absolutely legitimate, that cannot be addressed by a good operator and appropriate conditions. In the packet that we've included, we reference all of the Sheriff's Department recommended conditions, which with a couple minor tweaks are all acceptable to Chevron. They're standard conditions that you would see: restricted hours, no single beers, digital surveillance cameras, all things that Chevron already has in place. If you look at the last 4 conditions, Chevron will go above and beyond those restrictions. We'll pull the sales back to 10 p.m., no malt liquor, which is not a product that they sell, and ask that you give us the opportunity so that we can prove it to you that we can run this business like they do all their other businesses that sell alcohol in a good and responsible manner that's consistent with that neighborhood. We get it. It's a nice neighborhood. You don't want it to be run down. Chevron doesn't want that either. So we propose that the CUP be for a limited grant of 2 years with a mandatory 6-month review. It would expire. That would place the onus back on Chevron to come in and reapply if they want to continue the use. And if there's problems, no representative or attorney is going to be able to save them. We're very confident that there's not going to be any problems. We also limited it to 3 cooler doors. These are single cooler doors. This is a relatively small store. They probably will propose a bigger one down the road, consistent with their extra mile markets. But 3 cooler doors is what they're asking for. We would submit that customers are not going to drive across town to go to this store because Chevron offers 3 cooler doors of beer or wine. It's to capture the existing customer, which is the hardworking people of Vista, and we think that they can handle it. There's nothing about these concerns which cannot be addressed through conditions. So we would ask tonight to approve the use based on facts, based on Chevron's record, not speculation. Last point, I retained Bob Jacks, who will come up and talk in a minute. Mr. Jacks is a former vice cop, LAPD detective. I retain him from time to time as an expert witness. And with Mr. Jacks, what you see is what you get. His observations are his observations. If I have a client that has a dump of a store, he's going to come in and tell you. In that case, I wouldn't be able to use Mr. Jacks. But we asked Mr. Jacks to go out to the 4 or 5 nearest Chevron locations, which are in Carlsbad, San Marcos, and Oceanside, exactly like this one, corporate extra mile markets that are selling alcohol. Go to the locations day and night and report to you what he saw. I'll leave it to him to tell you, but we were very confident because of the way Chevron does things that he would report good things. Thank you very much. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Any questions? No. questions, I guess I don't see any. So Robert, is it Jax, did you say?
It's pronounced Jax, not exactly spelled like that.
Okay, yeah. That's why I was looking at how it was spelled. So Robert Jax, please.
As Mr. Evans said, my name is Robert Jax. I'm a licensed private investigator in the state of California and have been for over 20 years. I want the council to note that prior to that, I was a detective with the Los Angeles Police Department for over 22 years. During that time period, I not only worked patrol in South Central Los Angeles and homicide there, but I was also a Hollywood vice cop, and part of those responsibilities were alcohol-related offenses. I'm also a court-qualified narcotic expert. Mr. Evans's firm asked me to go out and do a site survey, not only on the applicant location, but on 4 other locations within a 6-mile radius of that location. They were all Chevron Extra Mile stores. The other 4 included offer for sale of alcohol. I did this on two days, Saturday and Sunday, for a total of 16 hours, 8 on both days, but I staggered the hours. So I covered both daytime and nighttime. I did multiple visits to the locations for 20 to 30 minutes each. I was to evaluate the cleanliness, the maintenance, and if I saw any alcohol, littering, graffiti-type related problems. Number one is I didn't see anything of that at any of the locations. All 5 of the locations are basically structured in the same way, that access is limited on the interiors, the aisles, et cetera, for anybody to loiter or hang out. The same thing, it differs from a liquor store in that it's a large area with the center of the location where the pumps are and where the market location is. Again, limits the type of people that would hang out in those type of locations. The cleanliness and the maintenance were all so good, I didn't see any litter. In fact, Mr. Evans even asked me, did I see anybody cleaning up? I said, I didn't even see a need to. I'm sure they do, because there's not even cigarette butts or anything that I could see. Most of the people, the patrons, drive up, park at the pumps. They're mostly getting gas, and then they walk inside. A couple of locations do have 3 or 4 parking locations right in front if you didn't want to get gas, but you wanted to pull up and buy something on the interior. Again, no loitering of any type at any point in my observations. I also noticed a marked decrease in patronage during the hours of darkness. And from my experience in crime fighting, et cetera, the hours of darkness are the ones where your crime goes up. There's hardly any patronage going on during those hours. The closest location that I observed similar to this one in regards to residences and things is the one at 970 Tamarack in Carlsbad. There's a St. Patrick's Catholic Church, which is located just east of that location. And then at the intersection just east of that is a large residential area. And again, the same observations I had at Tamarack are the same observations I had at all of them, including this location. I think from my observations, I didn't see any crime-related or alcohol-related at any of the locations, and I don't anticipate that you would have any at this location. Any questions from the City Council?
Any questions?
Thank you, ma'am.
No questions. Thank you, sir. The next speaker will be, is it Craig Bertel?
Thank you. My name is Craig Bechtel. I appreciate the fact that the City Council and the Planning Commission denied this license on the initial application. Hopefully we'll uphold their decision and deny the appeal. And the owner of the Chevron will get the message that we don't want another liquor store establishment in our neighborhood. He's correct in saying that the other takeout liquor store establishment closest to our house, well, let me preface by saying my wife and I are homeowners within about 250 feet of the Chevron station, and I might mention the proposed Melrose Wine and Spirit store that is soon to open with this council's approval. Once it gets approved by the council, I'm learning from the ABC after doing my research and trying to show up for appeal process hearings that is pretty much a slam dunk with the ABC. So my point is that we will soon have another establishment that's selling liquor. One guy put it a stone's throw away. It's probably within 50 feet of the Chevron. Even though they are separate locations, I'd like to briefly point out how the Melrose Wine and Liquor Store went from originally selling only beer and wine to acquiring a liquor license before they have even opened their doors. They applied for and were granted through a license to sell liquor through the ABC, the Alcoholic Beverage Control Board, through the lottery system. I found out from the ABC office in San Marcos that out of 28 applicants, there were 27 licenses granted. Those are pretty good odds for a lottery. You know, I'm getting a little bit tired of using my spare time. It seems like protesting these establishments that want to come into our peaceful little family-oriented neighborhood is becoming like a part-time job. The only difference, I'm not getting paid. The reason I bring up the thing about the process that the Melrose Wine and Liquor Store snuck in with is that, in my opinion, what is stopping the Chevron from doing that? And regarding the appeal processes, if I'm not, you know, I have found that many times the hearings I am required to attend are held during working hours. If I fail to show up for those hearings, my appeal is dropped. I can't afford to lose income, and my employer expects me to be to work. The liquor store has been held accountable to a whole bunch of restrictions, one of which is selling liquor between the hours of 10 a.m. and 10 p.m. How is anybody going to realistically enforce that restriction on a Chevron when they are open 7 days a week, 24 hours a day? I'm not the only neighborhood resident that is concerned with the fact that the strip mall where these stores are located has no security. I have never heard Melrose Wine and Liquor or the Chevron talk anything about providing a security guard. If she was to put up that map again, I would show you the medical plaza across the street that most of them are closed after 5 p.m. It's directly south there, across Sycamore. Look how wide open that parking lot is, all the cubbies, all the back alleys behind the buildings where people can buy their liquor and go consume it. My house is at the end of Sycamore and 2 doors to the left. And I don't think it's that far-fetched to think that people are going to go to that medical plaza, use it for a hangout. There's nothing stopping a person from getting in their car and driving around the corner.
Sir, can you wrap up?
Okay. I mean, a lot of these people made my points for me, but I'm not going to fall for what the guy about the owner of the Chevron claimed his store is so wonderful. I've been in there before, and if it does get approved, I'd like Mr. Jackson's phone number, and I'll call him instead of having to call the sheriffs who are not going to be there.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Anthony, is it Karish?
Good evening, Mayor and council members. My name is Anthony Cruz. I've been a resident here my whole entire life, besides a couple years I was in the military. When I was in the military, when I was gone, there was not even close to being how many liquor stores there are now. I don't like the fact that having a gas station is going to have another liquor store or a beer and wine that they're going to be selling, because for me, I think it has to do, or to have it do with drinking and driving, because it has the convenience factor of, going in there, having a couple beers. The people are going to drink that on the way home. That's what I see it as. I completely agree with your guys' denial for this, and thank you.
Thank you. Larry Tidwell?
Good evening, Mayor and council members. Larry Tidwell with Stantec Architecture, here representing Chevron. A few points in wrapping up the Chevron presentation. This is about a store that can offer a product that's a convenience. Under the special use permit process, one of the determining factors is if this is a convenience. You've heard the testimony and seen that there are no other convenience stores in this nearby vicinity selling beer and wine. They're 1.5 miles to 2 miles away, either to the north or to the west. To the east of Sycamore. Nothing to the south in the nearby vicinity. licenses like this tend to cluster in commercial zones. It's not an overconcentration to have more than one business selling a similar product in the same shopping center or in the same part of the city. I mean, if you look at any of the other commercial areas of the city, you will see other locations where there's multiple licenses selling beer and wine or other alcohol products. The fact that there's restaurants in this shopping center that sell wine or beer to customers having a meal does not change the fact that Chevron's ability to sell this product is a convenience for the community. Not all people in the community want to buy this kind of product, but a certain number do. That the demand is there is the reason that Chevron would like to sell this product, to be on an even footing with the other competing businesses in the community. Many other service stations in the city sell beer and wine as well. You've heard from John Jorgensen. This Chevron site, the Extra Mile Market, is a company-owned and operated site. It's one of a handful of sites out of all of the Chevron stores that are company-owned and operated. Chevron has a great interest in making sure that any of their company sites set a very high level of standard in the communities that they operate in and do a good job in complying with all the city regulations and don't cause problems for the community. So from a corporate standpoint, they have a lot of eyes on every station that sells beer and wine to make sure that problems do not occur. And they're so confident that this station, if it sells beer and wine, would not be a problem that they've offered to put a review period and then a requirement to renew the approval so that the city could be certain that the site is not causing the problems that could occur from alcohol sales. The staff report references general studies about problems that can occur with alcohol sales, but there's no evidence that this particular site could lead to an increase in crime or cause other problems. You've heard testimony from Chevron about the steps they take to make sure that their operations do not cause problems in the community, making sure that products are not sold to underage people, how they card everybody that looks 30 or younger, policing the sites to make sure there's no loitering, graffiti, or other potential problems. This site may be within 200 feet of residential, but many commercial properties are close to residential. They're placed so they're convenient for where people live. The ARCO and the ARCO AM/PM and the 7-Eleven site, they're about 1.5 miles away, are also within 200 feet of residential properties, but they have alcohol licenses. So overall, Chevron's proposed conditions where they could be a responsible operator here. There's no specific evidence about this site that would lead you to a conclusion that a special use permit cannot be approved for this location. Therefore, we ask you to approve the Chevron and its ability to sell beer and wine. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Erica Leary, followed by Stephanie Jackal.
Good evening. It's me again, Erica Leary, Program Manager with the North Coastal Prevention Coalition. And just a few comments. I do want to commend the staff report for recognizing the relationship between alcohol availability and crime, public safety, and welfare in their recommendation to deny this license. I would like to propose maybe taking a broader approach to the whole alcohol licensing application process and also getting a handle on the existing alcohol businesses in Vista. We've heard a lot of talk and references to crime magnets, bad operators. I think we can all sit back, close our eyes, and picture a few of those that are likely here in Vista. Just in January, we were out at the ABC license suspension event at Tommy's Market on East Vista Way. We'd done numerous assessments there with their illegal sales of synthetic drugs. Wasn't too long ago that the ARCO across from Rancho Buena Vista High School turned into a liquor store before our noses due to a little loophole in city zoning ordinances, so that didn't come before you, and they were cited for alcohol sales to minors violations just recently. So we do have a lot of problems that need addressing. There may or may not be problems to this particular Chevron application. Comprehensive CUP with distance requirements would address the issue that's being brought forth about the amount of space between off-sale licenses. Once this wine and spirits place opens, you probably don't want two right next to each other. And this approach has been being taken across California. There's numerous examples. The city of Ventura has a responsible retailer program where, very similar to the success you've seen with your tobacco retail licensing effort, they have a set of standards and process and fee imposed on their alcohol retailers and keep them in compliance with standard operating conditions. And if they violate, they can get them up to speed and remove some of those problem products like the single alcohol airplane bottles, the single serves of malt liquors, and some of the other things that we see common among certain populations and neighborhoods. You also have experience with your server training ordinance, which is great. You imposed that in 2009, I believe. We've had over 1,500 people trained here in your community rooms for proper alcohol sales and service through the ABC and with the Spanish language training that we've provided. And those people are responding that that training is very helpful, and 85% of them would change the way they do their jobs, such as checking IDs. So there's a lot of different approaches to take, and I would volunteer my time to be part of a work group, work with city staff. I understand it's part of your general plan amendment too, to take a comprehensive look at this alcohol policy. So in addition to this one location, let's look beyond that and also clean up the neighborhoods that we have. Thank you.
Thank you. Stephanie Jacko. And Stephanie is our last speaker tonight.
Good evening, Stephanie Jackal, 1500 Green Oak Road. My house is relatively close to the Chevron station, and so I go there for gas fairly often and go into the store to pay for the gas or whatever. And it is indeed a very nice, clean store. I would like to be very sure that not only Mr. Evans and Mr. Tidball, but also each of you understands that Melrose Wine and Liquor is not 1.5 miles down the road. It's going to be 160 feet away from the Chevron store. So, although it is a very nice store, I have to agree absolutely with staff's position that this appeal should be denied, and Chevron should not be able to sell alcohol. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so do you have any comments on the council? If not, we can close the public hearing. And I guess I would look for a motion for something. Anybody? Wake up.
I'll make a motion to close the public hearing and approve the staff's recommendation to deny the permit.
I'll second that.
Okay. Please cast your votes. Okay, that motion passes unanimously. Which moves us on to the next agenda issue, which is our subject is Agua Hacienda Creek Bridge. And we will open the public hearing on that. And John Conley is going to take this.
Thank you, Mayor. In 2012, when the general plan was adopted, there was a biological preserve overlay that was adopted in our natural areas, which include Buena Vista Park. In order to build any new facilities within the park under the biological preserve overlay, it requires a council's approval at a public hearing. We're proposing to put a prefabricated bridge in Buena Vista Park within this biological overlay area. And so we're bringing it before you this evening in a public hearing to obtain your approval in accordance with the requirements that are in the code. And that completes my staff presentation. I'm available for any questions. Thank you.
I don't have any speakers at all on this. Anybody? John, well, I'll ask a question here.
We have a slide here that shows that. I'm sorry. This is the Buena Vista Park is in the purple, and it's just north of Dawson Street in the canyon there where Melrose crosses over the creek. Just to the east of that, there's a pump station and trails that go back and cross over the creek. There was an old bridge there years ago that was taken down for safety purposes, and so we want to put something that can connect those trails back together.
Okay. So I have two speakers. Deputy Mayor Coles.
Thank you for this concise and upbeat proposal. And is the bridge big enough for a bicycle to cross it too?
Yes, it is.
Okay. And is the area lend itself to some bicycling in that region? Or?
It's a little tight, maybe on a mountain bike,
Okay.
but it's mostly for pedestrian use.
Yeah. Okay. I would make a motion to close the public hearing and approve the recommendation.
Okay, I have two people that want to speak, but I'll take that motion.
I'm
That's
sorry.
okay.
I
No,
didn't
that's
know we had
okay. We'll take
speakers.
that motion, and then I'll amend Councilmember Rigby.
I was just going to do what Deputy Mayor Coles did. Thank you to staff for doing this. I think it's a great project, and I would second Deputy Mayor Coles' motion to close the public hearing and vote.
Okay, then Councilmember Aguilera.
Thank you. The cost, it says the cost is going to be $65,000?
That's correct. It's about $30,000 for the purchase of the bridge and about another $35,000 to install it and build the footings and do all the construction work.
So the bridge is already pre-made, is that what the deal is?
Correct. Once we get council's approval, we'll put in our order for it. They'll have to prefabricate it, and then it'll come in pieces, and we'll assemble it on site and put it on the footings.
Okay. And how far does it reach across? Is it 60 feet or?
The dimension of the bridge is 6 feet wide by 60 feet long.
That's a pretty good.
The channel there is probably close to 40 feet to get across. Right now, people are crawling down into the channel to cross over the creek on boulders that are available to walk over, but it's pretty dangerous.
Yeah, no, I mean, it seems like a pretty good deal for the money. I mean, we're getting a lot of bridge, it seems like. I just thought it would be a lot more. So I'm good with it. Thank you.
So if I have no more discussion, I would ask you, I have a motion and a second. Public hearing is closed, and we'll cast our votes. That motion passes unanimously, which brings us to oral communications, and I have one speaker. Chuck Rabel, he stuck it out.
Been an interesting evening. I just want to mention two things. Number one, March 26th is the 50th birthday at the Boys and Girls Club for lunch. And the Chamber's got their annual leaders' dinner with our Sacramento delegation and Congressman Issa. It's right here, and I should know when it is. Friday, March 22nd, and it's at Shadow Ridge. Forgive me.
It's at Shadow Ridge.
Shadow Ridge on the Friday, March 22nd for dinner. And with that, I'm going to go home. I might stop at a liquor store, though.
I don't know if you can find one. Okay. Councilmember comments. We'll start with Amanda. Councilmember. Councilmember Coles?
Yeah, a couple of quick comments. At the beginning of March started off with a bang for us. I was able to be your counterpart, Mayor Ritter, to throw out the first pitch for the Vista American Little League.
Did it go across the base?
And mine went across the base right at the catcher's glove. It was a strike. But it was really nice to see all these young people and their parents and supporters and the coaches and all that they've put into that park. They've spent a lot of time, effort, and money to renovate that park, and they still have a lot to do. And I hope we can get to a position where we can provide a little support for some of the things that they need to do at that ballpark, because it's very, very well utilized, very popular. A lot of families participate there. Then the next day, as we were, I think most of us, for the Operation Hope ribbon cutting. What a beautiful facility that turned out to be. We went for the groundbreaking several months ago, and I can't believe that in the short time since the groundbreaking to the ribbon cutting, they completed the construction and remodeling that they did there. So I look forward to seeing that as an asset for our community. Thank you.
Councilmember Campbell. Councilmember Aguilera.
Thank you, Mayor. Well, I'm glad you guys got a chance to get out to the Little League fields and see the use that our sports park has, and in the Vista National Field, the use that they have, and then we also have other fields at Rancho Buena Vista that had openings as well. And you both can attest, as well as I can, that they are extremely busy.
Yes.
And all our fields, baseball fields, are busy. So I would urge you, Mayor, to put pressure on the City of Oceanside to help us with the French fields,
Yeah.
make sure they get built. That would be 2 additional baseball fields that are sorely needed at this time. So I would appreciate that. I did want to give an update on the Sprinter. Not a great week for the Sprinter. We were in the process of celebrating 5 years of great service. In fact, the usage has been upticking every year, so it's been very, very positive. But we did have a hiccup last week with the brakes. I'm sure most everybody's aware of it. It's very unfortunate, the timing especially. But the report is that NCTD has stepped up and rented buses to go ahead and meet the needs of the public. The unfortunate thing is it's adding some delays, a 30-minute to a 60-minute. I think most of the delays are about 30 minutes. However, they are transporting people, and hopefully everybody's had a chance to plan accordingly with those delays. But they are still moving people from those Sprinter stations. I joked with the executive director that at least we wouldn't have the delays at our Vista Village with the stoplight there, but I think we would prefer that with the Sprinter work. We're starting to find out that a lot of people are using the Sprinter and rely on it as a mode of transportation. So we're eager to get that going, and it does look like it's going to be somewhere between 60 and probably closer to 120 days before the Sprinter is back online. We meet again next week, and we are going to try to find a quicker way, hopefully, to get that sped up.
Okay. And I actually did the grand opening of the ball season for the Rancho Buena Vista Little League. I didn't have to pitch a ball there, and then I did the one at our sports field, and I bounced it. I didn't get it across the plate. Oh, is that why? Yeah, so anyway. But I have a couple of announcements here. Edco Disposal and the City of Vista are hosting a free document shredding and e-waste collection event for Vista residents on March 16th. Is that this week? Is that Saturday? Yes. When's March 16th? This Saturday. Okay, from 9 in the morning until 1 p.m. at Bringle Terrace Park. So if you have any e-waste, computers or whatever, document shredding. Residents can dispose of excess paper products and electronic waste at this event. The documents are limited to 2 banker's boxes, 10 by 12 by 15 per household. Electronic products accepted include old computer and television monitors, printers, scanners, laptop computers, fax machines, VCRs, radios, cell phones, and other miscellaneous computer components. Also, Born Yesterday opens at the Avo on March 21st. That's this weekend also. No, it's not this weekend. March 21st is, when is it? It's a week and a half. Okay, it runs through April 7th. I don't know. Did any of you see the program? What was the name of the one that was just on? It was a doo-wop show. Okay, now I got everybody on the spot. Nobody can remember the name of it.
Life Could Be a Dream.
Yeah, Life Could Be a Dream. Anyway, I heard lots of great comments on it. There was they loved the show. And then also, so Born Yesterday opens March 21st at the Avo, and then San Diego Humane Society is hosting a pet licensing event at Bringle Terrace Park on March 23rd from 10 until noon. I won't try and guess what day that is. So those are my announcements for the day.
Mayor, you want to say something about the parade?
Oh, St. Patrick's Day Parade on this Saturday at, do you know what time it is?
9 o'clock.
9 o'clock.
At 9 o'clock in the morning, there'll be a St. Patrick's Day Parade for all of you Irish people or people who aren't Irish, but wear green because I think my kids always pinch me if I don't wear green on St. Patrick's Day. So, Patrick Johnson, our city manager, do you have an announcement?
Yeah, the St. Patrick's Day celebration downtown will be from 9 to 4. And I did want to point out that one of the speakers mentioned that, alluded to the fact that the city didn't allow for a banner to be put up for the St. Patrick's Day Parade. Rather, we wanted to have our 50th banner put up. And I wanted to make clear that we put our 50th banner up over Vista Village when nobody else is paying to promote an event. And so in this case, the VVBA chose to use our 4x4 kiosk signs as opposed to do the over the Vista Village banner. So it wasn't that we were impeding anybody. We put that up as filler with the 50th anniversary. And I'm not feeling that well tonight, but I'd like to yield my time to our Assistant City Clerk, Kathy Valdez, who'd like to make a comment.
Oh, Kathy. Yeah. We had some dead time I had to kill, so we opened it up to questions. So there was like 3 different classes, wasn't it? What grade were they in? They're 4th graders? They're 5th graders. They're 5th graders. So they asked lots of questions. Is that it? Attorney Daryl Piper, nothing? Our city attorney?
Well, I'll simply mention that last Friday, the City Attorneys Association of San Diego had our annual spring retreat, and I'm happy to report that from the legal perspective, things look pretty good in Vista, as getting the reports from my peers. So congratulations to us, I think.
Yes, congratulations to you for keeping us out of trouble. Anything from Marcy, our city clerk, tonight? Nothing? Okay. What was that? Oh, Form 700s. Oh, okay. Oh, it's a joke. Okay. Okay. So we are now adjourned 8:02. Is that 8:02? 8:01. I can't read. My glasses aren't on.
Thank you to those 2 residents still in the audience. You made it through the entire evening with us. Thank you.